Hello, my name is David Bryan, and this is Curiosity Invited, a podcast inspired by endless curiosity. Tune in for an open-minded conversation about interesting and important things. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Curiosity Invited. My name is David Bryan, and today I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Daryl Davis. He's the person on the screen whose mouth is not moving as I'm speaking. Well, you know, it's interesting. Daryl is an incredibly interesting fellow. He is, by training, by profession, by talent, by all sorts of things, an incredibly talented musician who has been active in the music scene around the world for, you tell me, it's got to be what, 50 years?
Whoa! I wish
30 years. Is that right?
You got no. Since I graduated college in 1980.
Oh, God! Then you're really good. You're really good in a short time. And he's played with names that everybody remembers. He's played with Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley and Bo Diddley, and you can name more. And
but just to be clear, I never played with Elvis Presley. I met him and I saw him a bunch of times. I went to his funeral, but I did play with his band after he passed away. In some
no kidding.
Shows. Yeah.
Got it. Well, yeah, you've definitely been around. Were you a studio musician, or like you one of those people who could just
all of the above? I'm a touring musician, studio musician. You name it. I play dives. I play toilets. I play, big festivals. You name it. I've been there, done it. I've paid my dues.
Yeah, I'll bet. Okay, but that is not why you are most well known. Why Daryl is, and if I say this the wrong way, you correct me. But what Daryl is known, I would say, worldwide. But certainly shows up in a lot of different places. You can all, if you don't believe me, you can all Google him. And is because he has, over the years, what's interesting, I've read that you've gotten Klan members to give up their robes, but it doesn't sound like that's your mission. Like, you haven't been on a mission to collect Klan members' robes and get them to give it up. It's like you're not trying to convince them.
You are correct. You are correct. And I'm glad you point that out. Because unlike, most media, if you Google my name, it'll say, black musician converts X number of KKK members or whatever.
Yes.
No,
exactly.
I did not convert anybody. I am the impetus, if you will, for over 200 white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan members, neo-Nazis, and other races to renounce that ideology. And in doing so, many of the KKK members have given me their robes and hoods. Some of them now come out with me and speak on my stage when I give lectures, renouncing that movement, their former movement, and working towards de-radicalizing people still in the movement, as well as working towards preventing young people, especially, from joining these movements.
Well, I don't want to take away your opportunity to tell your story, but at the same time, I don't. Your story is out there, and I don't want to make you have to repeat it over and over again.
It's okay.
But it sounds like it started in some abstract way when you were a young person. When you were 10, you were a kid, and right. As I remember the story, you're in a Cub Scout parade and getting hit with flying objects because you were the only black kid in this Cub Scout parade, and there were people, for some, I don't know how many, but there were people who didn't like that you were there.
That is correct. And that had, a pretty profound effect on me. But to understand that profound effect, we have to go back before I was age 10. I grew up as the child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service. So I grew up as an American Embassy kid. And I began traveling abroad to different countries at the age of 3 in 1961. I'm 64 years old now, born in 58.
You're a baby.
Yeah, exactly. And, how it works is You get assigned to a country for 2 years, and then you come back home at the end of those 2 years to get back here to the States. You may be here for a few months, you may be here for a year, and then you're sent back overseas to another foreign country. So back and forth every 2 years, I would travel starting at the age of 3. And my first exposure to school was overseas. I did kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade, seventh grade, all overseas in foreign countries. Now, here's the interesting thing, David. This is the 1960s, right? Starting in 61 and on through 71. My classes over there, whether they were kindergarten, first, third, fifth, seventh, eighth, or ninth grade, whatever, they were filled with kids from all over the world. Anybody who had an embassy in those countries in which we were serving, all of their kids went to the same school.
Oh,
so my classmates, classmates were from Nigeria, Japan, Russia, France, Germany, Italy, you name it. Those were my classmates. And because that was my first exposure to school, that was my baseline for what school should be. That was my norm.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I'd come back home here to my own country, I would either be in all Black or Black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and there was not as much diversity as I had overseas, that we had in our classrooms here. And
Mm-hmm.
even though, as you know, desegregation was passed by the Supreme Court in 1954, 4 years before I was born, it didn't just change overnight. Integration took years and years, right?
And in many places, it's still taking time.
Exactly. So having that kind of background, we all got along. We didn't judge each other on color. We played together. We worked together. We had slumber parties together. You name it. Color was not a thing that we talked about. It wasn't even the elephant in the room.
And what about in the schools? What about in the white schools when you came? I mean, not in the white schools, in the U.S. schools when you came.
That's where I'm getting to right now. Yeah. Okay. So now, up to age 10, when you as you were introducing me, you said at age 10 I had these things thrown at me. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So age 10, I come back. I'm in a integrated school, but there were only two Black kids in the entire school. myself in fourth grade, and a little Black girl in second grade. Now, just for you, I have brought you my fourth grade picture. See if you can find me, okay?
Wait, let me guess.
Okay, so you see me. That's me at age 10. All right, so now that was one of the first U.S. schools that I went to that was integrated. All the other ones were all Black, that I was allowed to go to, right? Okay, so now you see some of the guys there in the back row with me.
Yeah.
Some of them were members of the Cub Scouts, and they invited me to join the Cub Scouts. This is 1968. And so I joined the Cub Scouts. Sounded like fun. You get to tie knots, go camping, and all that kind of thing. And so I joined the Cub Scouts. Well, we had a parade. And now that picture was taken at my elementary school in a place called Belmont, Massachusetts.
Okay, I was going to ask you where. Yeah,
which is a suburb of Boston.
Yeah.
Okay, and we had a parade from Lexington, which is right next door to Belmont, Lexington to Concord. And it was the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Brownies, Girl Scouts, 4-H Club, and a bunch of different organizations. And we were marching from Lexington to Concord, Massachusetts, to commemorate the ride of Paul Revere.
Right.
So the streets are all blocked off. The sidewalks on either side are lined with nothing but white people. And they're all, waving and cheering and yelling, the British are coming and all that kind of thing. And until we got, everything was fine. Everybody's having a good time. And until we got to a certain point on the parade route when suddenly I was getting hit. with bottles and soda pop cans and just small debris from the street by only a small group of the spectators on the sidewalk to my right. I would say maybe 4 or 5 people mixed in with a larger crowd. The whole crowd was white, but these 4 or 5 white people, well, were throwing things. And I remember it being a couple of kids, perhaps a year or two older than me, and a couple of adults.
And nobody's stopping them. Nobody's stopping them. Nobody's stopping them that I was aware of. Yeah. But my scout leaders, my den mother, my cub master, my troop leader, all came running over. These are all white people, right? They all came running over and huddled around me and quickly escorted me out of the danger. Now, when I first got hit, of course, I'm looking to see, what's happening. And I see people, throwing things. My first thought was, oh, these people over here, they don't like the scouts. That's how naive I was because, I had no precedent for this behavior. Sure.
And I had no idea why they were doing this. It wasn't until those troop leaders, scout leaders came running over and huddled over me that I realized I was the only scout getting this special protection. So now I'm wondering, what did I do? What did I do to those people to cause them to do something? You did
not at that moment know.
No.
This has something to do with my color.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That's wild. Yeah.
And I kept questioning my leaders, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? I didn't do anything to them. And all they would do is kind of shush me and rush me along, tell me to keep moving. Everything's going to be okay. Well, they never answered my question. So after the parade was over, we went back to the meeting place and I went home. And my mom and dad, who were not at the parade, the march, they were cleaning me up, putting that sticky red stuff called mercurochrome on me and Band-Aids.
You were cut. I mean, you had little sores.
I mean, it wasn't like, I got hit and knocked out and fall down, right, but I got scraped up a little bit.
Yeah.
They're cleaning me up, bandaging me up. Yeah. And they're asking me, how did you fall down and get all scraped up? They thought I tripped and fell or something. And I told them exactly what had happened. So now to your point, for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down and explained to me what racism was. David, at the age of 10, I had never heard the word racism. I had no clue what they were talking about. No clue. Okay? It just was not in my vocabulary. It was not in my sphere. It was not in my world.
Daryl, you said I've got chills going right now, but the reason is, that's a terrible story. I have such a similar story. It wasn't Cub Scouts. I was in elementary school, and and I actually think it was an entirely white in Ridgewood, New Jersey. I'll never forget it. Entirely white school, elementary school. Whatever. Had my friends, and one day I was walking down the stairs in the hallway, and other people walking up, and I accidentally bumped into, I'll never forget the kid's name, Mike Decker, who was a friend of mine, and a white kid, and his books dropped. And he turned to me and he said, "You dirty Jew." And I'm Jewish. And I remember going home, and I said, "I'm sorry," whatever. And I remember going home and being incredibly confused and asking my mom, why would somebody say, first of all, it never occurred to me, how did he know I was Jewish?
How did he know you were dirty?
I didn't know what he was. So I said, why would somebody say dirty Jew? I didn't get it. And my parents that night, it was the conversation for the first time I remember. I must have been 7 or 8. It was the first time I remember a conversation about you're Jewish and there are people who won't like you because of that. And that's so chilling. So anyway, I'm sorry I didn't mean to stop your story there.
No. Hey, that's a great story, and we learn from that.
Yeah,
we learn from that going forward. In your case, in my case, instead of getting furious, we got curious.
Curious. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when my parents were telling me this, I'm an only child, so I only had my mom and dad to rely on, and they never lied to me. But on this day, I truly believe that they were lying to me for whatever reason. They were not telling me the truth. Racism, what the heck is that? And no, my 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that somebody would want to hurt me for no other reason than the color of my skin. It made no sense to me. And furthermore, to my point, the people who were doing that looked just like my friends, whether they were my friends right there in Belmont or my friends overseas, whether they were from the American Embassy or my little German or Swedish or Danish or Norwegian friends. So color had nothing to do with it.
Right.
And why are my mom and dad telling me this? I didn't believe them. But very quickly, I found out this phenomenon did exist. Even when Dr. King was assassinated that same year, I couldn't understand this color thing, because that's not how I grew up. So finally, I accepted it that this thing that I never heard of called racism does exist. But what I did not understand was why. And I formed a question in my mind at that age, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? So I got curious instead of furious. And for the next 54 years, I've been looking for the answer to that question. And I have a vast library of books on Black supremacy, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, the Ku Klux Klan, racism, the Nazis in Germany, the neo-Nazis over here. I've read all of those books. I'm very knowledgeable on the subject. But my books did not really answer the question as to why. They talked about it, but didn't tell me why. So, who better to ask that question of than someone who would go so far as to join an organization with over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them, who don't believe as they believe or worship as they worship. Okay, so it was happenstance. I graduated college. I had a lot of incidents in between then as well.
What did you study in college? What did you study? Music?
I have my degree in music from Howard University, and I got an honorary doctorate degree this year from Post University in Waterbury, Connecticut. A doctorate of humane letters.
That's great.
So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So after I graduated college, I became a professional musician. And there came a point where country music had made a resurgence. A movie called Urban Cowboy with John Travolta.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah. It changed the whole radio and
Suddenly
nightclub
there
scene.
Was country music. It was cool.
Yeah. Country came back.
Yeah.
And, so if you want to work full time, you played country. So I joined this country band. I like country music. It's no different than the blues. Same 3 chords.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I was the only Black guy in the band. The band was pretty well established. I'm here in Maryland now. I'm from Chicago originally, but I live in Maryland. And the band was pretty established in the Maryland area. I joined them. And they had played a place, all white band. They had played a place up in a town called Frederick, Maryland, about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C., a place called the Silver Dollar Lounge. And the Silver Dollar Lounge was known as an all-white lounge. There were no signs, like you saw back in the day of, colored water fountain, white water fountain, nothing like that. But it had that reputation. And you knew if you were Black, you were not welcome there. So, if you go somewhere where you're not welcome and alcohol is being served, it's not always a good combination.
Oh, no, it's a bad combination. But wait, so by now in your life, by this time in your life, you're no longer naive. You've now had enough incidents in the world.
Some people
bumped into the world, right? You bumped into the world.
Some people might correct you and tell you that I'm still naive. I don't think I am, but there are people who tell me that I am. But anyway, yeah. So I have bumped into the world.
Yeah. So you knew what you were getting into as you walked into this bar.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. But I walked in anyway. I mean, hey,
yeah,
I'm an American. I'm in my own country. I have a right to go anywhere I want to go. That's a public place.
And,
right?
I want my paycheck at the end of the night.
Damn right. Or before I play, whatever. But so I'm in there. And of course, I got some looks. But, we did our job. And after the first set of music, we take a break. And I'm walking to the band table with the band when I felt somebody behind me reach over my shoulder and, put their arm around my shoulder. Now, I don't know anybody in here other than the band, so I'm trying to see who's touching me. And it was a white guy, 18 or so years older than me, big smile on his face. And he points, first he says, "Man, I love your all's music." I said, "Thank you." And I shook his hand and he pointed at the bandstand and said, "I've seen this here band before, but I ain't never seen you before. Where'd you come from?" And I explained to him that, yes, the band has played here before, but I just joined the band a couple months ago. It's my first time. He says, "Man, I sure love your piano playing. This is the first time I ever heard a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis." Well, I had to tell him, where Jerry Lee Lewis, learned how to play. And he didn't believe me. And I said, "Look, man, I know Jerry Lee Lewis personally. He's a good friend of mine. He's told me himself how he used to go and watch these black blues and boogie-woogie piano players play in his hometown of Faraday, Louisiana." Well, he didn't believe that I knew Jerry Lee or anything like that. And so...
Was he hostile? Or he was...
No, he wasn't hostile. He just thought I was BSing him or something.
Yeah.
He just couldn't get into his head. First, he was just totally amazed that a black guy could play that kind of music. So obviously, he didn't see Little Richard or Fats Domino, but he was so fascinated with me that he wanted me to go back to his table with him and let him buy me a drink. And I agreed to go to his table. I don't drink, but I had a glass of cranberry juice, and he paid for it. He took his glass of whatever he was drinking, and he clinked my glass and cheered me. And then he says, "This is the first time I ever sat down with a black man and had a drink." And now I'm yes, I was a little naive there. I was totally, mystified. Like, how can this be? Because at this point in my life, I had sat down literally with thousands of white people or anybody else.
Yeah.
It was the norm for me.
Yeah.
And this guy is 15, 18 years older than me. He'd never sat down with a black guy. So innocent, I wasn't trying to be facetious. Innocently, I asked him, I said, "Why?" And he didn't answer me. He stared down at the tabletop, didn't say anything. I asked him again, and his buddy sitting next to him elbowed him and said, tell him. And I said, "Tell me." He looked at me and he said, "I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan." Well, I burst out laughing at him because, as I told you, I have all these books. And I've never read anywhere in any of those books how a Klansman will come up, put his arm around a black guy and praise his piano player and want to hang out and talk to him and buy him a drink.
You never read that book?
I missed that book.
Buy a black man a drink.
Yeah, exactly. So, that wasn't happening. This guy's pulling my leg. So I'm laughing. He goes into his pocket, pulls out his wallet, goes through it, flips through some cards, pulls out one and gives it to me. It's his Klan membership card. I recognize the Klan logo insignia, which is a red circle with a white cross and a red blood drop in the center of the cross. Oh. Whoa, this thing is for real. So I stopped laughing because it wasn't funny at that point, right?
Suddenly it's really not funny.
Yeah. And so, but I gave him back his card. We talked about the Klan and other things, but the guy gave me his phone number. I'm telling you, this guy was just over the moon about me. I don't think I'm that great, but he did. And he wanted me to call him anytime I was to return to this bar with this band, because he wanted to bring his friends, the ones with the pointed hats and robes, Klansmen and Klanswomen, to see, as he put it, the black guy who plays like Jerry Lee. I'm not sure if he called me a black guy to his friends or not, but that's how he explained it to me. And so I'd call him every 6 weeks and say, hey, man, we're going to be down at the Silver Dollar. Come on out. He'd come out and he'd bring Klansmen and Klanswomen. They didn't come in robes and hoods, came in regular street clothes, right? And they'd gather around near the bandstand and watch me play with the band. They'd get out on the dance floor and dance. And on the breaks, I'd make my way over to his table, say hello. The ones who came with them, most of them, were curious about me. They hung by the table, wanted to meet me, talk to me, etc. But there were a couple of them that would get up every time they saw me coming and moved to the other side of the room. So the implication was, we don't want to talk to you, shake your hand. We just want to look at you, which was fine by me too. So, that went on until the end of that year. And then I quit that band and I went on back to playing, rock and roll and whatever else was going on.
Yeah.
So later on, it dawned on me a few years later, Daryl, because, I lost track of the guy. I had no reason to stay in touch with the Klan. And it dawned on me, Daryl, you blew it. The answer to your question that has been plaguing you
was sitting at that table.
Yeah, was right there.
Yeah.
Find that guy's number, call him up, and see if he will hook you up with the Klan leader for the state of Maryland. Now, a state leader in the Klan is what's known as, what we would call a state leader, the governor. They call their state leader the Grand Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that is prefixed with the word grand means that person is a state officer, dragon being the top officer. Okay. Anybody prefixed with the word imperial means that person is a national. Yeah. And so imperial wizard would be like what we call the president, who oversees all of the states in which he has a chapter of his Klan group. So anyway, this guy named Roger Kelly was the Grand Dragon of Maryland. And I didn't know Mr. Kelly personally, but I knew who he was.
Wait, but Kelly is not the guy at the table.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. So, but you wanted to meet him.
I wanted to meet Kelly. The guy at the table was one of Kelly's members.
Yeah.
Okay. So I found the guy's number. This is, a few years later. I called it. It had been disconnected. It took me a couple of weeks to track him down. He had moved. He didn't have a phone, but I got an address on him. So I go by his apartment unannounced. I had no way of contacting the guy, right? To let him know how I want to come over and talk to you. So I just show up there one evening. I knock on his door. And he opens the door and he's like, whoa, hey, Daryl, what's going on? And he steps out into the hallway. He looks up and down the hallway to see if I brought anybody with me. Well, when he stepped out of his apartment, I stepped in. So he turns around, he comes back in. He goes, hey, man, are you still playing? What's going on? And I say, yeah, I'm still playing. But listen, I need to talk to you about the Klan. And he's like, the Klan? And I said, yeah, you're a member, right? And he says, well, I was, as you know, but I left the Klan. But anyway, I said, well, where's all your Klan stuff? And he says, what do you mean my Klan stuff? My robe and hood? I said, yeah. He says, well, they came and got it. I said, what do you mean they came and got it? Don't you own your robe and hood? And he explained to me that when you join the Klan, and I found this to be true later on, you can purchase the robe and hood and the handbook and all the other stuff. And if
there's a handbook?
Yeah. They have their own, constitution, and they spell it with a K, of course. And rules and policies and all this other stuff. Yeah. So anyway, it's yours to keep if you buy it outright. If you don't have the money to pay for everything, you can still take it home with you, once you've been initiated into the Klan, but you put a little extra money every dues period, until you pay it off. You add a little extra money with your dues until it's paid off. Well, apparently he had not paid off everything, and they came and repoed his robe and hood. But he told me, he told me that when they came to get it, he couldn't find the mask, that covered the face. And he had since found it, and he needed to return it. So I said, well, can I see it? And he went down this hallway, came back, and handed me this mask. So I'm looking at this thing. I said, listen, man, do you know Roger Kelly? Yeah, I know Roger. Roger was my Grand Dragon. I said, well, listen, I'm going to write a book on the Klan, and I want to interview Roger Kelly. Can you hook me up with him? He said, Daryl, I can't do that. We both will be in trouble. I said, but you're not in the Klan anymore. He goes, I cannot take a black man to the Grand Dragon. So I begged and pleaded. He wouldn't do it. I said, well, listen, you say you need to return this mask, right? He said, yeah. I said, give me Roger Kelly's address and phone number, and I'll return it for you. He snatched that thing right out of my hand and said, no way. We'd definitely be in trouble then. And so I begged and pleaded for Mr. Kelly's information. He finally gave it to me on the condition that I not tell Roger Kelly where I got it.
Where you got it.
Yeah. So, and then he told me about a place that I could go and possibly run into Roger Kelly on a Saturday night, which I tried, but Roger had been there, but I went there on a Sunday. He had been there on Saturday, but he wasn't there on Sunday. But anyway, so I had my secretary
now
call.
You're really, by this time, you're really on this mission. I mean, you're going.
Absolutely. So my secretary, and the only reason I mention her skin color, because I could care less, is that it's part of my story. She's white. So I asked her to call Roger Kelly and ask him if he would consent to sitting down and doing an interview with her boss, because he's writing a book on the Klan. Now, I'm the one who had the number. I could have called him myself. Oh, I forgot to tell you. The guy told me before I left with the address and phone number of Mr. Kelly, and him telling me, don't reveal where I got it. He said, Daryl, do not fool with Roger Kelly. Roger Kelly will kill you. So I also had that in mind. The reason why I did not call him, because I figured, well, if he might detect in my voice over the phone that I'm black. And he said, I'm not talking to you, click. And my project would have ended before it ever got started.
Yeah.
But I knew that if Mary called him, he would know that the other voice on the other end of the phone is a white lady. And I knew enough about the mentality that I would know that he would not assume that this white woman is working for a black man, especially a black man who's writing a book on the Klan. They don't exist, right? So that would up my chances of him agreeing to it. And then if he agreed, obviously when he saw me, he could figure it out my color, right? And then he can decide what he wants to do. So I told Mary, do not tell him that I'm black. If he asks, don't lie to him, but don't give him reason to ask. So she said, okay. And also, I figured that if he did know I was black in advance, and he still agreed to do the interview, that he would have time to prepare perhaps different answers for a black interviewer than he would give to a white interviewer. So I wanted this to be spontaneous, candid. So that was my reasoning in that. It wasn't to deceive him or anything like that. Okay, so she called him, she got a hold of him, and he agreed to do the interview. He didn't ask what color I was. All right, so fast forward.
That had to be a weird phone call, right? I mean, it's like,
no, not really.
Is this Roger Kelly from the Klan? There's a certain sort of pride, right? They're not embarrassed.
Well, okay. Klan leaders.
Yeah.
A lot of them are known because, they have to, they're the ones who hold the rallies. Their name is in the paper.
Yeah.
They're the ones who have to go to, if it's a public rally, like say they want to, they have to get a permit to hold a rally in a park.
Yeah.
So their name is out there.
Got it.
And they're on TV. They're the ones interviewed in the paper. Some of the members, perhaps not.
Right.
They don't have their identities revealed because they can lose their jobs and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
All right. So anyway, she asked him, if he would consent. He agreed to do it. Did not ask what color I was. So we set it up for this motel room. In fact, it was the motel right above the Silver Dollar Lounge. Lounge is in the basement of this motel. And so Mary and I got there several hours early and got the room. I gave her some money, sent her down the hall to get soda pop out of the vending machine, put it in the ice bucket, get it all cold. And, I want to be able to offer my guests a cold beverage, just like I would offer you if you came to visit me or whatever, right? So all that's prepared. And the way the room just happened to be, if you're standing in the hallway looking through the door into the room, you cannot see who's in the room. You have to walk through the door, turn to your right, go around the corner, and then you see the layout of the room. So I took the lamp off and put the table in the most obscure corner of the room, right? And put a chair on one side for Mr. Kelly, a chair on the other side for me. And I had this little black canvas bag sitting beside my chair, in which I had a cassette recorder, blank cassettes, put the recorder in the middle of the table, all in hopes that he would come in and sit down, even knowing that I'm black.
Right.
And two, that he would allow me to record.
Right.
So had everything prepared, and also in the bag was a copy of the Bible, because the Ku Klux Klan claims to be a Christian organization. And they claim that the Bible preaches racial separation. Now, I've read the Bible. I'm a Christian. I've never seen it in there. So I want to be able to pull up my Bible, say, here, Mr. Kelly, show me chapter and verse. Right. So I'm all prepared, right? Right on time. We set it for 5:15. Right at 5:15. Knock, knock, knock on the door. I'm seated at the table where you can't see me from the doorway. Mary hops up, runs around the corner, opens the door. In walks what is known as the Grand Nighthawk. Nighthawk means bodyguard. A Grand Nighthawk would be the bodyguard to the Grand Dragon, like an Imperial Nighthawk would be the bodyguard to the Imperial Wizard. All right, so in walks this Grand Nighthawk, and he's wearing military fatigues. He's got that red circle, white cross, blood drop patch on one side of his chest, the letters KKK on the other.
Wow.
Embroidered on his cap. It said Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
Nobody's shy about this.
Yeah, and on his hip, he had a semi-automatic in a holster. And he comes, and comes around the corner, and he sees me and just freezes. Now, Mr. Kelly is on the other side of the corner, right? Doesn't realize that his Nighthawk stopped short. So Mr. Kelly comes around the corner and slams into this guy's back and knocks the guy forward. And now they both are stumbling around, looking all over the room, and I'm just sitting at the table looking at them like, I could read their faces. I could see the apprehension, and I knew what they were thinking.
Yeah, there's got to be some danger somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
Well, they're thinking, did the desk clerk give us the wrong room number, or is this an ambush?
It's an ambush. Yeah.
Right. So I stood up and I went like this to show my palms. I have nothing in my hands, right? And I walked right towards Mr. Kelly with my right hand extended. I said, "Hi, Mr. Kelly, I'm Daryl Davis." And he shook my hand, as did the Nighthawk. So far, so good. I said, please, come on in, have a seat. Mr. Kelly sat down. The Nighthawk stood at attention to his right? And right before I could sit down, Mr. Kelly says, "Mr. Davis, do you have any form of identification?" I said, "Sure." And I went in my wallet, I gave him my driver's license. And then he says to me, "Oh, you live on such and such street." Now, that had me a little concerned. Why is he looking at my address? All he has to do is look at my name, look at my picture, match it up to me, and give me back my license. Here he is calling off my street name. Is he going to come by my house and burn a cross in my yard? Why is he doing that? So I did not want to let him know that that he had unnerved me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I want to let him know that under no circumstances was he to come to my house uninvited, for any nefarious activity. And so I said, "Yes, Mr. Kelly, that is where I live. And you live at," and I named his house number and his street. And, he nodded his head, smiled. So I was implying, that if you come visit me, I'm going to come visit you. So we're going to confine all this visiting to this motel room.
Yeah.
That's not what I said, but that's what I was implying. Well, I didn't find out that day. It was many months later that I had no reason to fear him coming to my house. He recognized my street name because one of his members lived right down the street from my house. Okay.
Did you know this guy? Did you know him?
I did not. I know him now. He's in prison now. But my street right here, it runs through, a couple of neighborhoods. It's a long street. And Mr. Kelly would have to get on my street in order to get to that guy's house. So he simply recognized the name. And it was just pure coincidence. But I had no way of knowing that
he wasn't
at the time.
Sending a signal of any. He wasn't sending a message
No, 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 not at all. But
Uh,
that guy, the other Klansman who lived down the road here,
yeah.
he's in prison for a hate crime. He's there for a long time, and so he's where he belongs. But anyway, so we got on into this interview, and we're talking back and forth, and every time Mr. Kelly would make some biblical point or something, or my cassette recorder would run out of tape, I'd reach down into my bag to retrieve a fresh cassette or the Bible. Every time I'd reach down, the Nighthawk would reach up to his hip.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But he's doing his job.
Yeah.
His job is to protect the Grand Dragon.
Guy. Yeah.
Exactly. So I got that. I understood. I'm the enemy. He doesn't know what's in my bag. I understand all that. So, I wasn't bothered by that. And so after a while, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or so, maybe a little less, he realized there's no threat in the bag. And he, relaxed. Every time I went in the bag, he didn't move. Well, a little over an hour into this interview, Mr. Kelly and I just talking casually. And out of nowhere, there was a very fast, very short noise, like a, that was it. Just that. And we all jumped because it was so out of context. We didn't know where it came from. And I jumped up out of my chair and I hit the table. And I knew that Mr. Kelly had made this noise. And because the noise was so short and so fast, it was here and gone in a second, my ear could not discern what it was. And because I could not identify it, I perceived it to be an ominous, threatening noise. Here I am sitting in a hotel room with the head of the Ku Klux Klan for the state of Maryland.
Well, and you also have that guy saying, he's going to kill, or he would.
Don't fool with him; he'll kill you.
Yeah.
So I got all that going in my head, and I had gone into survival mode.
Yeah.
And I'm looking right at Mr. Kelly.
Yeah.
Right into his eyes, and my eyes were saying to him, "What did you just do?" Because I was going to come across that table and take him down and take the Nighthawk down with him, because I was not armed. And my job is to protect myself and my secretary. And just like the Nighthawk's job is to protect himself and his boss. So I'm not armed. Mary is not armed. I didn't want to die that day. I was ready to dive across that table, grab them both, slam them down to the ground, and take away the Nighthawk's gun. I did not know if Mr. Kelly had a weapon on him or not. All I knew was I don't have a weapon. I got to neutralize, this situation. And when I hit the table, I'm looking right into his eyes. I didn't say one word, but my eyes were speaking for me. And they were saying to him, "What did you just do?" His eyes were looking right into my eyes, and I could read his eyes. They were asking me the same question.
Yeah,
what did you just do? Right. Yeah. And the Nighthawk had his hand back on his gun. He didn't pull it, but he had his hand on the butt of the gun. And he's looking at both of us like, what did either one of y'all just do? And so Mary was sitting to my left on top of the dresser because there were no more chairs in the room. And she realized what had happened, and she began explaining it to us. The ice bucket containing the soda pop had the ice in it had begun melting, and the cans of soda were falling down the ice. That was it. And then it happened again, And so we all began laughing. It's funny, but not funny. Somebody could have gotten shot over a melting ice cube.
Yeah.
But this was a teaching moment. The learning would come later. This was a teaching moment. The teaching was this: all because some foreign, and underscore, highlight, circle the word foreign, entity of which we were ignorant had entered into our conversation, our little comfort zone via the noise that it made, we all became fearful of one another. Ignorance breeds fear. We fear those things we don't understand. And if that fear is not addressed and not kept in check, that fear will escalate into hatred because we hate the things that frighten us. If we don't address that hatred and keep that in check, that in turn will escalate into destruction. We want to destroy the things that we hate. Why? Because they frighten us. But guess what? At the end of the day, they may have been harmless and we were simply ignorant. So we saw that whole chain almost unravel to completion.
Did you guys talk about that?
Right, oh, we did later. Yeah, we did later. Yeah,
you did later.
Yeah. I mean, we laughed for a while, about it in the moment.
Yeah,
yeah. So we carried on with this conversation, and I thanked Mr. Kelly at the end of the interview. We shook hands. He gave me his card, very similar card to the one that his member had shown me in the Silver Dollar, a few years prior.
Yeah.
I would continue talking with them. I would also interview other Klan people around the country, up north, down south, Midwest, West.
So
Kelly
wait, I don't want to get bogged down, but so you have a conversation with Kelly. Did that open, or did he open doors for you? Like, oh, you should speak to blah, blah, blah.
He did. He did open some doors for me. Yes, he did.
Or whatever.
Now he opened some doors for me within his own Klan group. Because Klan, okay, let me give you the status of the Klan these days. There's no such thing any longer as the Ku Klux Klan.
Right.
There are many Ku Klux Klan groups.
Right.
Okay. There used to be one Ku Klux Klan and chapters of that Ku Klux Klan. A centralized organization, headquarters, and all that. Yeah. But now they've all splintered. So they all use the same colors on their robes, the same secret handshake, same titles, same bylaws, etc. But they all are autonomous groups. Each one has an imperial wizard, a grand dragon, so forth and so on. And they are rivals with each other. So they don't necessarily like each other. So he opened up doors for me within his own group. But I would seek out other groups as well. And here's one thing that I learned. I've been between traveling as a child with my parents and now traveling as an adult musician or lecturer overseas again. I have been to 61 countries on 6 continents. I have performed in all 50 states. So what that means is I've been exposed to a wide variety of cultures, ethnicities, religions, colors of skin, ideologies, belief systems, all that. And all of that has helped impact who I am. And the one thing that I've noticed, that I've gathered and learned from all this travel, is that wherever I go, be it in this country or be it all the way around the world, anybody I meet who even may not look like me, may not speak my language, doesn't worship as I do or whatnot, they all are human beings. And as such, everybody wants these 5 core values in their lives. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be treated fairly. And everybody basically wants the same things for their family as we want for our family. And if we can learn to apply those 5 core values, or any of those 5 values, when we find ourselves in an adversarial situation or in a society or culture in which we are unfamiliar or uncomfortable, I can guarantee you that the navigation will be much more positive and much more smooth.
Okay.
I'm not saying there's no danger there.
No, I was about to ask you that. So have you been in situations with people who, well, let's just stay focused on, racism, with people who are racist,
yes, I have.
who don't respond positively to those things. Like they've just got in their mind, you know what? This is a black guy, and I know that black people are this, and this, and I don't want any part of it, and get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I have. And, I'm not somebody who advocates violence as the first resort by any means, but I have had to be violent. I've had to put people in the hospital, hurt them. I have put people in jail for putting their hands on me. I've beat people in the street, and I've beat them in court. I will not, tolerate somebody trying to inflict violence upon me. I will defend myself. Fortunately, those times have been few and far between. But yes, they can happen. Yeah. And when you're dealing with people who are that, inundated, that they would go so far as to join a group that has a history of violence and hate and murder and lynchings and bombings. Yes, you will run into people like that.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but yes, you will run into people like that.
Have you met with, or do you bump into, whether it's Klans people or other white supremacist groups, that they don't necessarily hate you, but they want nothing to do with you? They're separatists. Yes. They don't, hey, you're fine, you're over there. I'm fine, I'm over here.
Yeah.
I won't go over there. You don't come over here.
Right. You have different degrees.
Yeah.
Okay. You have white separatists. You have white supremacists. A white separatist believes, blacks should have their own neighborhoods, their own schools, their own workplaces. Whites, should have their own, and we don't cross.
Right.
A white supremacist is no. This is an all-white country. Everybody else who's non-white needs to get the hell out of here, or else be exterminated. Let me just tell you. We'll go back to 10th grade. I did 10th grade here in the country, and we had a class called the POTC, which stood for Problems of the 20th Century. We had a fantastic teacher, and he would invite. It was a class for seniors, for 12th graders. I was taking it as a sophomore, as a 10th grader. Our teacher would invite different people to our classroom, controversial type people, to address the class, and we get to ask them questions and stuff. So one day, he brought in 1974. He brought in the head of the American Nazi Party to our classroom. All right, you could never do that today, but we're talking 1970s now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now let me give you a little bit of background on the American Nazi Party. It was founded not too far from where I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting in Silver Spring, Maryland. The American Nazi Party was founded right across the Potomac River in Arlington, Virginia, by a fellow named George Lincoln Rockwell.
I was going to say Rockwell. Yeah.
Yeah. And ironically, one of his teachers was at my school for a while. But anyway, one of his daughters was at my school for a while, but she wanted nothing to do with her father. Totally different thing. Yeah. Anyway, George Lincoln Rockwell was a major proponent of the ideology of Adolf Hitler, and he was always clashing with Martin Luther King, and he was a white supremacist. And so anyway, George Lincoln Rockwell was murdered by one of his own American Nazis, a guy named John Palter, and right over in Arlington, Virginia. They got into an argument, and Palter shot and killed Rockwell. So Rockwell's right-hand guy was a guy named Matt Cole, Koehl. And so he became the leader of the American Nazi Party. On this day in 1974, Matt Cole came to my classroom, and he brought his right-hand guy, whose name was Martin Kerr, Kerr. So they're up in the front of the class, and Matt Cole was espousing the views of white supremacy. And
were you the only black guy in the class?
No, there was one. Yeah, no. There were plenty of blacks in the school, about 12%. Right. But there were two black people in this particular class, myself and another guy. And Matt Cole pointed at me and pointed at the other guy and said, "We're going to ship you back to Africa." And then he took his index finger and a sweeping motion, he went like this. He goes, "And all you Jews out there, you're going back to Israel." Now, I just sat there staring at this guy like, what on earth is this man talking about, right? And one of my classmates said, "Well, they live here. What happens if they don't want to go?" And Matt Cole said, "Oh, they have no choice. If they do not leave voluntarily, they will be exterminated in the upcoming race war." That was the first time I ever heard the term race war. And I'm thinking to myself, what on earth is wrong with this guy? And he was dead serious, right? So later on that day, I was standing by my locker in the hallway, and Matt Cole and Martin Kerr were leaving. They had been there all day talking to other POTC classes.
Spreading their crap.
Exactly. So I was alone in the hallway, and they had to walk past me to go to the front of the building to go out the door. And they paused right in front of me and glared at me, and then sneered and started laughing at me. And then they went on. They didn't say anything. They just did those facial motions, and then walked on past me and on out the door. And that further propelled me to learn more about this ideology. So years later, 1980. This is 1974. 1982, the American Nazi Party had a what do you call it? A unpublicized protest. We have a park I'm about 15 minutes from Washington, D.C., right across the Maryland line. I'm about maybe 30 minutes from the White House. Okay, during non-rush hour. DC rush hour, you never want to talk about. Yeah, but anyway, exactly. There is a park right across the street from the White House called Lafayette Park.
Yeah, sure.
And, yeah, so anybody who wants to protest something, they go to Lafayette Park, face the White House with their placards or whatever, and there are people in Lafayette Park 24/7, 365 days a year. Some people pitch tents there, stay there, and protest all day, all year. So anyway, the American Nazi Party was going to have an unpublicized silent protest. And unpublicized means nobody knows about it, not even the police, nobody, except people that they tell. Well, I was able to find out something through some sources of mine. And so back then, you could drive up and down the 1600 block of Pennsylvania Avenue. You can't do that anymore. Only police vehicles and pedestrians, no citizen vehicles, because people have tried to ram the gates of the White House.
Yeah.
So anyway, back then you could drive there. So I parked my car catty corner to the White House. I got down there, the thing was going to be at 12 noon. And I got down there early. And so sure enough, 12 noon, here comes this van. About 13, 15 of these Nazis get out. Now, there's nothing to identify them as Nazis. No, Gestapo uniforms, SS insignia, swastikas, none of that stuff. They're all wearing dark black suits. Who do I see? Matt Cole and Martin Kerr and this little group of Nazis, all in black suits. So Matt Cole gets all these people lined up, facing the White House on the sidewalk. And they just stand there silently looking at the White House, right? And so I get out of the vehicle. I walk over. I start walking right towards Matt Cole. And I felt that I had to confront him because I did not confront him in school that day, But now, it wasn't that I was afraid. It was how I was raised, that you view your elders as figures of authority. So, whether you agree with them or not, it's okay to disagree, but you don't attack them or whatever. And, but now the dynamic had changed. Yes, he was still my elder. I'm 2 years graduated out of college. So, I'm 24 years old. But the dynamic had changed. Back then, I was 15 and he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
So it's child to adult. Now it's adult to adult.
Right.
So I felt the need. I had to confront him. So I walked right up to him and I said, Matt Cole. And he jumped like backwards, like, who is this black person calling my name, right? And he says, do I know you? And I said, well, you spoke at my high school. And he says, what high school was that? I told him the high school. He goes, oh, yes, that was a long time ago. What can I do for you? I said, yes, it was. I said, 8 years ago. I said, he goes, I remember you. How can I help you? And I said, do you remember what you told me? He nodded his head. Yes, I do. And I said, well, I'm still here.
I'm still here.
Yeah. And he says, well, I can see that. What can I do for you? And I said, well, you can tell me who the hell gives you the authority to make permanent travel arrangements for me. And he says, what's your name? I said, Daryl Davis. He goes, yes, Mr. Davis. And he shook my hand. And he held my hand tight in his hand while he was shaking it. And then with his other hand, he shook his finger in my face. And this was a tactic that I learned from him that I've applied to some Klansmen and neo-Nazis myself, right? I got this from him. So he's shaking my hand and shaking his finger in my face. He said, Mr. Davis, you have to understand one thing. It is in the interest of your race, the Black race, to be a strong race. And you cannot be a strong race unless you are a pure race. And you cannot be a pure race if you are miscegenating with other races. It is in the interest of my race, the Aryan race, to also be a strong race. We are becoming a mongrel race by miscegenating with mud races such as yours. So anybody who is non-Aryan, or he calls them Aryans, whites, is considered a mud race. And he went on to say that the races cannot coexist in the same country until they understand that they must live separately and cannot be together. So we talked some more. I wasn't there to beat him up. I was just there to confront him and learn something from him. So we talked for, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I shook his hand again, thanked him, and I left. Well, later on that year, during the summer, he had his National American Nazi Party recruitment rally. And he had chapters from all over the country converge on Washington, D.C. Well, I learned something. He had this rally in D.C. Why? And this time it was publicized, months in advance, because he had to get a permit and all that kind of stuff. People wrote letters telling the D.C. government, not to allow them to be there, et cetera, et cetera. You can't do that. We have a right to freedom of assembly and freedom of speech and all that, regardless of whether we agree with it or not. So they got the permit. Well, the police arranged for them to meet in a Maryland county right outside of D.C. on a chartered bus, so they all would be contained, not just all of them coming separately, all contained in one place, and the police would escort them into D.C. and then make a human circle around where they're having the rally, so people couldn't get to them. There were about 50 of these people, maybe 40 to 50 of these Nazis. And because they had police protection, they wore their Gestapo uniforms. They flew their swastika flags, and had their SS insignias and all that kind of stuff. And my secretary, Mary, and I, we go down there to watch all this. There were thousands, tens of thousands, literally, of protesters who came from New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia, and all over the place to protest these people. A lot of them brought baseball bats and bricks and chains. And so you had all these police forming a human shield in the form of a circle around these people. And of course, there's Matt Cole, in his uniform, taunting the crowd, Zig Heil, Hi Hitler, white power, all that kind of nonsense. And people were rushing the police. Police are pushing them back with their shields and their batons. And then people began taking their objects and throwing them over the heads of the police in order to land on one of the Nazis in the circle. Well, then the police pulled up the tear gas, began spraying people. The protesters began turning over police cars, bashing out the windows, setting things on fire, destroying property, all that stuff, right? And so that evening, my secretary and I were back home. We're watching the news, and there's Matt Cole in the studio with the local NBC affiliate, right, being interviewed, and they're running the footage of the riot that day. And he says, you see, it's the blacks and the Jews, who are turning over police cars and destroying property. You don't see the Nazis doing that. They're trying to deny us our freedom of speech and our freedom of assembly. It was then that I realized, because I was wondering the whole time, why on earth would the American Nazi Party hold their national recruitment rally in Washington, D.C.? Washington, D.C. is 2/3 Black. There are no Black people in D.C. who want to join the American Nazi Party, and certainly no Jews in D.C. or anywhere else that I know of that want to join the American Nazi Party. So why D.C.? Because Matt Cole knew this would happen, and he would have official news footage. Back then, you only had ABC, NBC, and CBS, right? He would have official news footage of what was happening. He would take that footage, go out to the Pacific Northwest, and use it as propaganda, as a recruitment tool. Say,
it's a
you
great
see what's going on? Yeah, you see
coverage.
You see what's going on in our nation's capital.
Yeah.
You know, our country is being run by Zog. Zog is a white supremacist acronym, ZOG, for Zionist Occupied Government.
Oh, well.
Okay, our country is being run by Zog. You know, you see they're denying us our right to existence, our right to freedom of speech, on, and he recruits people. That's why he had it in DC. So I learned that from him. But anyway, so you know, that he passed away a few years ago, but he was still very active. Martin Kerr, his right hand guy, was in Charlottesville during that deadly rally a few years ago.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
crazy stuff. But anyway, back to Roger Kelly. So you know, I began. You know, I would have Roger Kelly come down to my house, sit right here in my living room. We would sit here at my dining room table, have lunch, have dinner. He'd bring his bodyguard initially, and the bodyguard would sit on the couch next to him. I sit across from him. Sometimes the bodyguard, the Nighthawk, would get bored, pull out his gun, and twirl it on his finger while Mr. Kelly and I are talking, right? But now this went on for a couple of years. And, you know, whenever I was up, you know, in his county or whatever, I'd call him. I'd say, hey, man, what are you doing? If he said nothing, I said, well, come run this errand with me. He'd say, okay, I'll meet you wherever. He always wanted to meet me somewhere. He didn't want me to come to his house.
To his house.
Yeah. So this went on for a couple of years. After the first year, Roger Kelly, the Grand Dragon, would come to my house by himself. He trusted me that much that he did not bring his Nighthawk, right? And then, after, you know, so that went on for a year. So after 2 years, Roger Kelly became the Imperial Wizard, national leader. And then he began inviting me to his home. And I'd go there. He'd show me his Klan den where he'd have his meetings. I'd take some pictures.
Were you friends? Do you when you think, I don't know if is he still alive?
Yeah.
So did he become your friend?
Yes, he did.
And
yes, he did.
And do you think he would respond? Like if I asked him that question, assuming he'd speak to me, would he say, yeah, Daryl Davis is my friend?
Yes, he probably would. Most likely, yeah. But he's very reclusive now. He used to come out and do interviews, he himself, and do all that. But then he ended up getting fired from every job he had because he's, you know,
member of the Klan.
Yeah, exactly. Even though he was ex.
Yeah. In at least some instances, your relationship became one not of necessarily just learning from them, but there was a relationship built.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We start off this far apart.
Yeah.
Right? At opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, your enemies, you have nothing in common, or so you think. You talk for 5 minutes, you find you have some things in common.
Yeah.
And the gap narrows a little bit.
Well, but isn't there a difference here? Like you didn't walk into those situations thinking of them as the enemy. Maybe you did. But
initially I did.
But they walked in thinking of you as the enemy.
Initially I did, because I was not setting out to convert them.
Yeah.
These people hate me, so they are the enemy.
Yeah.
Okay. All I want to know is, why are you my enemy with no reason?
Right.
The only reason you have is the color of my skin.
Yeah.
I need to understand that. So yes, I viewed them as the enemy, but I viewed them as an enemy I want to sit down and talk to and get to know.
And so, okay, so the press and, you know, whoever speaks about it and talks about you having, quote, converted them. So we spoke about that. That's not your way of thinking about it.
Right.
So at what point, like when the people who left the Klan, when they speak about why they left the Klan, what do they say? What do they, like, you know, why did they do that? Did they feel like they were insulting you? Was it about you?
No,
they about their own realizations? What?
Both. That through coming to know me, you know, they figured they had no reason to hate, you know, and they got to meet other people through me. They got to meet, you know, and initially I would only allow them to meet me because I wanted to protect, you know, I didn't know I would never put anybody else in danger.
Sure.
Okay. Once I got to a point where I trusted them that, there isn't going to be any kind of danger, I would introduce them to other of my Black friends, my Jewish friends, my other white friends who look just like them, but didn't believe the way they believe. Okay. So then, because you don't want, because this can happen if you don't do that. Oh, Daryl's okay for a Black guy. It's all those other Black people.
Exactly.
You don't want that to happen.
You're the special case, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, most Black people are XYZ, but Daryl's cool.
Right. Yeah. He's almost one of us.
Yes.
That
exactly.
kind of crazy stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, Roger and I would become friends.
Yeah.
And eventually he began inviting me to we go out and have dinner together. I go to his house, he go to my house. He invited me to Klan rallies.
I was going to say that was the most interesting thing. Is
now
that suddenly you at a Klan rally.
Here is I've been doing this for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
This is 29 years ago here in Maryland at one of Roger Kelly's rallies. Okay, you see I'm a little younger there. It's towards the end of a rally.
We were a little younger ones.
Yeah, I was a little younger, a little thinner, more hair on my head, And you see the red circle, white cross, red blood drop.
Yeah.
Okay, all Klan groups wear that.
Is this Roger Kelly right here?
No, that's not Roger Kelly. That's another Klansman. But that's one of Roger Kelly's rallies.
Got it.
Okay, so this is towards the end of a rally. The fire on the cross is going out, and I asked for a Klansman to pose for a picture with me, and he agreed to do it. And so there's the picture. Here is
everybody was cool with you being there.
Listen, there's a chain of command. If the leader, the Grand Dragon, or the Imperial Wizard says it's okay, whether it's okay with you or not, you obey.
Got it.
Okay, so, definitely there are people there who were not cool with me.
Yeah,
but they had no choice but to be cool to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here is that was 29 years ago. Here's one 7 years ago in Missouri, different Klan group. Okay, and again, this is towards the end of the rally. At the end of the rally, they have like a picnic table or some setup where you have burgers and hot dogs and beverages.
You don't look happy being there. Am I making something up, or is you are at a Klan rally here, right?
I don't go to Klan rallies happy.
Okay, good.
Okay, so now so they leave some people there, by the cross, because the cross is going to topple over, and they don't want it to fall and set something on fire. So they're guarding the cross. But there are other Klan members off to the side, out of view.
Yeah.
Now, what do I do at Klan? Like I said, this one is out in Missouri. What do I do at these things? I converse, because I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. So here I am doing what I do. I'm talking, all right? Now, you see the guy that I'm talking to, facing him with the mask and the green cross on.
Yeah.
All right, he threatened me. He threatened me when I came on that rally ground. To this day, for the last 7 years, I get a Christmas present from him every year. He's no longer involved. He is my friend. Okay? Now, the guy that you see right on the other side of me,
guy with the beard,
that was the Imperial Wizard for that particular group. He and I were becoming very good friends. He had the largest Klan group in the country at the time. And if he had lived, he would be out of the Klan by now. He and I were becoming that close. However, he was murdered. I knew him for.
What are you talking about? What you're at these Klan rallies? What's the conversation about? Is it about the food?
Everything.
Is it everything?
Everything. How can you hate me? You don't even know me. That's what I'm saying to this guy right now. What is the problem you have with me?
Right.
All you see is the color of my skin, but yet we speak the same language. We might even like the same things, but you're not willing to give yourself an opportunity to get to know me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking like that,
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, but I knew the other guy who was murdered. I knew him very well. I knew his family. I knew the murderer very well. It's just a tragic story. All right, now I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a clip real quick of one of Roger Kelly's rallies that I went to.
Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
As friendship transcended the color barrier. Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
All right, man, the hell I'm back, because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Okay, so you saw the Grand Dragon there, and you saw the Imperial Wizard, the green robe, the white robe with the green adornments, and the white robe with the blue adornments.
Yes.
Okay, because the colors signify your rank.
Rank.
Okay, now, in that one sentence that Roger Kelly said, a lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he'll sit down and he respects me to sit down and listen to me,
yes.
And I respect him to sit down and listen to him. In that one sentence, he named three of those 5 core values I gave you. I said everybody wants to be loved. They want to be respected. They want to be heard. They want to be treated fairly, and they want the same things for their family as we want for ours. He said I respected him. He said,
you listened to him.
I listened to him. That means I allowed him to be heard.
You bet.
And because I respected him and allowed him to be heard or listen to him, then he treated me fairly by respecting me and sitting down and listening to me.
Yeah.
That's what he said, right? He named 3 of those core values. Now, understand something. I did not respect what he had to say. I respected his right to say it. And because I did that, he reciprocated. And I would always apply those values. Listen, I'm not a racist. I'm not a separatist, a nationalist, a supremacist, or any of those things. I don't buy into that. But I listened to him. I showed him that respect. And in turn, he reciprocated. And every time we would get together, I would show him that respect. I would listen. All right. And he would treat me fairly. And over time, it began to work on him. He began to see. His mind began opening up.
And you were not the special case.
No.
Suddenly he's thinking, well, he's realizing he's been mistaken.
Exactly. Okay. And he left the Klan, as did his Grand Dragon. And I have both of their robes.
Yeah.
There they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me step you through it real quickly. Show you how well here are some of the things that I have right here. That's just a partial collection.
Oh my gosh. Jeez. Daryl, what's your house look like?
Well, listen, I don't keep all that stuff in my house.
I was going to say.
I keep it locked up, at a secure location, not in the house. But yeah, I got a ton of that stuff: swastika flags, Klan flags, robes, hoods, you name it. Okay, so.
I have this fantasy image of you walking down the street and people chasing you and say, "Here, let me give you my robes."
Well, believe it or not, David, I've had people that I've met, and I've had people that I've not met, who have heard me either on some podcast or on a TED Talk or on TV or whatever. And something changed in them, and they email me and ask me if I want their robe and hood. And next thing you know, it arrives at my PO box. Oh my God. Yeah,
it's pretty wild.
Yeah,
I don't want to get in the way of what you want to speak about next, but I want to make sure we get to talk about and I'm not rushing. We don't have to end this anytime soon, but I just want to respect your time. But I'm curious about how this is all how you are playing out, how what you do is playing out. I don't mean that trivially in the cultural climate that we're in right now, which is one that is, probably as much intolerance in both directions as there's ever been, at least in my lifetime, right? I mean, there's almost the intolerance of putting up with, like, there's not a lot of people who'd sit down with the Grand Dragon of the Klan, and anybody who did would be painted by, like, well, why are we paying attention? So
Listen, I'm
really
have my
curious about that. I'm really curious.
I have my share of detractors. Trust me.
You have your share of detractors
for sitting down with people like that. Absolutely.
We're not talking about racists. We're not talking about Klansmen. We're talking about people who either
white and black people.
They have a problem with what you are doing. You do.
Yeah. And you know what I do? You know what I do?
You sit down with them and talk to them.
I sit down and talk with them, but they don't get it. And so I pull out those robes and hoods that you saw. And I say, this is what I've done to put a dent in racism.
Yeah.
How many robes and hoods and swastika flags have you collected?
Yeah.
And then they shut up.
Yeah. Got it.
When somebody has mistreated you for 400 years and they're still mistreating you 400 years later, it's time to change your approach. If you do the same thing the same way, you're going to get the same result.
Same result. Yeah.
So, anytime you do something that is not the status quo, you're going to have detractors.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is not the status quo. It should be the status quo. We should sit down with people with whom we disagree and have civil conversations.
Sure.
Okay. Here's the funny thing, David. We as a country, anytime there are two foreign countries that are getting ready to go to battle with each other, or even a single foreign country that's getting ready to have a civil war between two factions, we try to intervene and bring the leaders of each nation or each faction together for a summit, so that things will not erupt. But yet we don't apply that in our own country. We should clean up our own backyard before we start telling other people, what to do.
Have you noticed a change is there more of that now, more of the detractors now than there was 15 years ago? I mean, what you've done, I mean, you're going to be modest about it, but what you've done is extraordinary. That's why people are like, wait, what? But you're giving him his robes? What? Right. So what you've done is extraordinary and exemplary. And yeah, maybe everybody could do it or should do it or whatever. But are there, so the fact that there are people who are detractors about that, not Nazis, but the opposite side, not Klansmen, but the opposite side.
But I've managed to make supporters out of some of my detractors.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear.
But now, let me tell you what's going on today. Okay. I learned this from Matt Cole, back when I confronted him on the sidewalk across from the White House. All right. He told me a lot of BS, right? A bunch of lies, but this was true. At the time, I wasn't quite sure what the hell he's talking about, but it's true. Okay. He told me about the year 2042. And 2042 is going to be a milestone in this country. He told me that back in 1982. So I've known about that for this long. This country was built on a two-tier society. White supremacy at the top, slavery at the bottom. And as we progress through the decades, we progress like this, right? Mm-hmm. Perhaps like this, but never like this.
All right.
Okay. When you and I were kids, The black population in this country was 12%. Native Americans, 1%. Hispanic, Latino people, almost 2%. Asian Americans, almost 3%. As you know, the U.S. Census was taken every 10 years.
Yeah.
Just go to uscensus.gov, you can see the trends.
It's a real different census these days.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. And see, you know, I was talking to this girl. I went out and had dinner with her the other night, and she's 35 years old. And I said, are you familiar with the term white flight? She said, what? I said, white flight. She goes, no, what is that? You know, you know what white flight is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But see, young people don't know about white flight because the American landscape has changed color so much that, you know, white flight barely exists anymore. Everywhere you go, there's already somebody there who doesn't look like you, right? So white flight's out the window now. You know, it doesn't exist anymore. When we were kids, white people were like 86, 87%. Today, the white population of this country is 59%, almost 60%. Black people remain right around 12.9. So they say 13. We really haven't grown, right? Native Americans have not grown. They're still at 1%. Asian Americans have almost doubled. They're almost at 6%, 5.9%. Latino people, Hispanic people have more than quadrupled, 17 point something percent. So if you take just 12% Black, 17% Latino, that right there is 29% non-white. Yeah. Let alone the other people, you know. So this is happening. Oh, yeah. And it is well predicted.
Well, and that's what those people are afraid of.
Exactly.
Well,
okay.
Like the browning of America. The
browning of America. White genocide through miscegenation. Yeah. You know, and that's what these Nazis and these KKK and alt-right and Proud Boys and other people tell me. They said, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. That's the browning of America. Yeah, you know, exactly. And you know, when I first started this, almost 40 years ago, there was the Ku Klux Klan, some neo-Nazi groups, and some white power skinheads. That was pretty much it. All right, now you got the Ku Klux Klan, the neo-Nazis, the white power skinheads, the alt-right, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the Boogaloo Boys, the 3%ers, the 1%ers, the Vanguard, on and on and on and on. Right, and they're all saying, come join us. Come join us. You know, we're going to take back our country. We're going to make America great again. We're going to send those, again. We're going to send those people back to where they belong. Right. And so, out of fear of their identity being erased, people are running and joining these groups. Right. And then when the group fails to take the country back, some of these, or they don't take it back fast enough, some of these people get frustrated and say, you know what? If the Klan can't do it or the neo-Nazis can't do it, I'll do it myself. And that's when they go off, you know, solo and walk into a black church and boom, 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 or into the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, boom, 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 the grocery store in Buffalo, New York, boom, right? The Walmart in El Paso, the Sikh Indian Temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. These people committing these racial murders are called lone wolves. I was going to say, the lone wolves. Now, we have intelligence agencies that have agents, operatives in those agencies that fit the profile of some of these groups, and they can join those groups undercover, gather intelligence, report it back, and squash those plots. For example, you remember last year when some group in Michigan was going to kidnap and murder the governor, right? There were already operatives in that group. That's why that plot got foiled. All right. So while we may be able to infiltrate some of these groups, how do you infiltrate a lone wolf? No, you can't do it. Right. And as we get closer and closer to 2042, we're going to see more and more of those lone wolves. These people are becoming unhinged. And every time one of them gets shot and killed by law enforcement or gets arrested or whatever, and the law goes and searches their property, what do they find? They find a cache of automatic weapons. I was about to say. Yeah, that are being stockpiled for what they call RAHOWA, RAHOWA, which are the first two letters of three words, Racial Holy War, or for short, the Race War. That's what those weapons are for.
Wow.
You remember Y2K, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, 1999, everybody was freaking out. It's going to be the end of the world. The banks are going to lose my money. My VCR is not going to stop working.
Everything.
You know, all this.
The water's going to stop. No electricity.
Everything, right? Okay. Of course, that didn't happen. But the year 2042 is the white supremacist Y2K.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it. You know, so they're trying to stop it. And that is a good part of what the insurrection was all about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because let me tell you something. The 4 years that Donald Trump was president of this country, they became very emboldened, and they felt they had license to do whatever they wanted to do, and pretty much they did. And they realized that if Donald Trump was not reinstalled for the next 4 years, they would lose everything they gained those past 4 years, because there had never been a president in their lifetime or our lifetime that had given people of that mentality that much freedom to do whatever they wanted to do.
So are you hopeful?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me say this. I did not support Donald Trump, but I will say that he is the best thing that has happened to this country. He was not the best president. He is the best thing that has happened to this country. Why? Because everything is in your face. The closet door has been opened. The rug has been pulled up. The rock has been turned over. Mm-hmm. Okay. People have been in denial. If they don't see it, then it doesn't exist. Oh, you know, we had a black president. We're way beyond racism. No, we're not in a post-racial society.
No.
And so it's like, you know, if you go on a trip, say you're going from wherever you are in Wyoming, say you're going to Jackson Hole or somewhere, and all of a sudden on the highway, your car starts knocking and making a funny noise. First thing is, you know, you're going to pull over and go find a mechanic, because, you know, you don't want to get stranded somewhere halfway across the state. And so you pull up to a mechanic and say, hey, you know, can you ride around in my car with me, drive around my car with me, and see if you can figure out what this noise is. So he gets in behind the wheel, and you all go for a ride around the block, but the noise doesn't happen. What does he tell you? He tells you, I can't fix what I can't hear.
Right.
You know,
everything's
normal,
fine.
right? Everything's fine. So that's the mentality of too many Americans. You know, if we don't see it, you know, we don't hear it, we ignore it, it goes away. No.
Right.
It metastasizes, just like
cancer.
I
will give you that. I mean, I think that's true. Donald Trump, he did not create it; he revealed it.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. He did not create it. Neither did Barack Obama or George Bush or Clinton or anybody. It's always been here. But he revealed it and he emboldened it.
Yes, he did. He absolutely did.
And so this is the best time in our country right now. It's in your face. You cannot deny it. Let's address it. Let's get it fixed. Mm-hmm. You know, it's only been in the last couple of years that we began calling these people in our own country terrorists.
Yes.
Okay. Before we reserved that term for somebody of Middle Eastern descent.
Well, Daryl, wait. I want to see if I've asked you. If I've asked you, I had so many questions for you, and I think we've spoken about so much. I love that you asked that question and you got your answer eventually. And yeah. I love
I got two answers. One answer, you know, when I first asked the question, well, Mr. Davis, you know, black people are prone to crime.
Yeah.
You know, there are more black people in prison than white people. So obviously black people are more prone to crime. You know, yes, the data reveals there are more black people in prison, but the data doesn't show that we have an imbalance in our judicial system, right?
Totally.
And and black people are inherently lazy. They want to scam the government welfare system. The data also shows that there are more whites on welfare than black people.
By
there are more
far.
whites in this country, right?
Yes.
And then one of the best ones is Mr. Davis. Black people are born with a smaller brain than white people, and this is evidenced by the fact that black students score lower every year on the SATs, Scholastic Aptitude Test, than white kids do. Again, this is true. This is data will show that, but the data doesn't show, well, where do most black people go to school? They go to school in the inner city. I'll guarantee you, black kids who go to school in the suburbs can score just as high, if not higher, than some of the white kids. And some of the white kids who go to school in the inner city can score just as low as some of the black kids, if not lower. The size of the student's brain or the color of their skin has absolutely nothing to do with how they score on the SATs. It has everything to do with the educational system in which they are enrolled.
Absolutely. And the willingness for people to believe in them and,
right.
and challenge them and challenge students who have been sort of written off by, the pre-existing assumption that they're not going to amount to anything.
Right.
So well, Daryl, I really appreciate you giving me the time to have this
My
conversation.
pleasure.
I hope there's a conversation. Well, I know there will be because we'll see each other on some Friday or another.
But I will be happy to fix you up with some former Klan leaders, I'll fix you up. I will fix you up with the former head of the largest neo-Nazi organization in this country. It's called the NSM, National Socialist Movement.
Oh yeah.
And he's a very, very good friend of mine. And I helped influence him along with a Muslim woman filmmaker to get out of that movement.
I think that is the best piece for me, is that it's not just about collecting robes, and some of the people have become your friends.
Yes, absolutely.
And you theirs. And
yeah,
I think that is, that's the